Morning. How you doing? 7:25 on a Friday, October 18th. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Let's start out today's trip around the weather sphere. I don't know. I just made that up. I don't even know what that means. We'll start with the current satellite, infrared satellite here. And we can see our low. It's getting well defined here, pretty close to Las Vegas. You can see that little spin in the atmosphere, spreading a lot of moisture, rain, snow, Utah, up into Wyoming, even Montana, and maybe even some showers up here in North Dakota. And we're going to watch this area here in eastern New Mexico for severe weather for the next couple of days, maybe even some tornadoes. We'll show you that on the severe weather outlook. So this is our big player, this low, which is going to get even better defined and sort of drop into Arizona and then stall out here in the Four Corners, kind of camp out for the weekend before it moves out into the plains. And again, some severe weather out ahead of that, mainly eastern New Mexico, maybe a little bit into West Texas, southeastern Colorado. We'll see. Let's see, a little bit of moisture moving into Florida, some scattered showers here, a low well off the coast here in New England. And looks like some more clouds spreading in, maybe some showers for the Pacific Northwest. Let's check out those watches and warnings, shall we? A lot of them centered around our low. So a lot of it's the West Coast, the western third of the country that's dealing with watches and warnings. So Oregon, Washington, that's a freeze warning there for some areas. You get down into Northern California, Southern Oregon, freeze warnings here as well. Then it's that's not red flag warning for parts of California. And then in the brown is a wind advisory. Wind advisory also around Las Vegas into western Arizona. Other parts of Nevada, though, dealing with, I believe I'm trying to see it. That's a freeze warning. So it's just cold enough to end the growing season, and that goes into Utah. Utah is where we start to see our winter storm warnings, mountains east of Salt Lake, and kind of through the center of the state. Also into Colorado. This is our big area of heavy snows, southwestern Colorado. Winter storm warnings here. For eastern Arizona, southeastern Arizona, freeze warnings in effect. So yeah, end of the growing season there too. Also with some wind, so wind advisories, those wind advisories go into New Mexico as well, and even a little bit of a flood watch there. Little patch of wind for central Kansas, wind advisory. And then on the East Coast, there's some scattered freeze warnings there as temperatures are getting below freezing for the first time. To end that growing season, let's see, I left out Montana. We got a winter storm warning there. Northern Montana, some wind issues. And for Wyoming, freeze warnings and winter weather advisories throughout the state there. Idaho, some freeze warnings near Boise, and a freeze watch a little bit further to the west. All right, I think we got it covered. Let's check out our weather spotlight as we head to Grand Junction, Colorado. And a ton of snow headed for you north of Durango and northeast of Durango. On the left, you see the winter storm warnings in pink, the winter weather advisories in that bluish color. And so we have Utah on the left and Colorado, southwestern Colorado on the right. Now, all the way to the right, we see our official National Weather Service snowfall forecast. And between Durango and Telluride and off to the east, we're talking 2 to 3 feet of snow in the mountains here. Also, if you take a trip on Interstate 70 from Grand Junction through Eagle up to Vail, when you get to around Vail and through the mountain pass there, you can run into anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow, even on the highway, and some greater amounts south of Vail in Colorado. So yeah, this storm means business, and we're talking, today, right now, through tomorrow morning for a lot of these snowfall amounts, and 12 to 24 inches above 8,500 feet for the San Juans. And again, as we were talking, even greater amounts, you could see 3 feet of snow. All right, today's surface looks like this. We see a bunch of rain rain mixed with snow and snow for the Intermountain West. So all the way from the Washington Cascades, Oregon, Eastern Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, into Arizona and New Mexico. It's snow or a mixture, and some areas of heavy snow, southern Montana into Wyoming, parts of Idaho, Nevada border there, east of Salt Lake City. And then, of course, we'll be getting into that heavier snow in the southwestern mountains of Colorado as well. So this is our big, upper level low with all the surface features here. A little bit of rain, as we showed you on the satellite, for North Dakota into South Dakota, some scattered showers for New Mexico into Texas, and some of those could be severe later today. So eastern New Mexico from, say, Roswell up through Tucumcari, which is on I-40, up through Clayton, up in the northeastern corner, and even a little bit of southwestern or southeastern Colorado. This is our best chance for severe weather, and one of the main threats, hail and tornadoes. Just a 2% possibility, but you're saying there's a chance. So that's to watch out for severe weather today, maybe even a few tornadoes there in eastern New Mexico. The temperature anomalies for today, as you would expect with our low, well below average for Arizona, Utah, Nevada. That's kind of our bullseye for the coldest below average, up into Wyoming too. I mean, we're talking 20, maybe even 30 degrees below average for some areas here. West Texas cooling off too, 10 degrees below average, Amarillo to Lubbock. And it's warm in the plains. We had that gusty southerly winds yesterday. We even had some brush fires, some grass fires in Nebraska. So the high fire danger remains here. The winds will be relaxing a little bit today, but still breezy. Teens above average for Iowa, 20s above 20 or so above average for Minnesota into Wisconsin. Still cool for the Northeast, a few degrees below average here. Translates to highs in the 70s today. 60s when you get into the mid-Atlantic, and 60s and even some 50s up in the Northeast. 60s for much of the Great Lakes. You get into Iowa, mid-70s today. Nebraska, Kansas, upper 70s. Same for Oklahoma. And there's a few 60s there in West Texas, but 70s for most of the state, even low 80s, mid 80s, Austin to San Antonio. And then you get into the West, and that's where the cool stuff is. A lot of 40s here, even some 30s for the mountains, and some 50s scattered about as well. And even the desert Southwest cooling off, 74 today for Tucson, Arizona. Lows tomorrow morning. It's cold in the West, with lows in the 20s, even some teens here in the Rockies. 40s for the Willamette Valley of Oregon and also the Columbia River Gorge. Some 50s for California, even 50s down like Tucson, a low of 55, refreshingly cool. 44 when you get down is that Bisbee probably. And you see the Mogollon Rim there in the 30s. So yeah, 50s to start the day in Texas. And then heading up into the plains, 60s for Kansas, parts of Nebraska, 50s for Iowa, into Minnesota, the warm parts of the plains, otherwise surrounded by 40s here. And 40s all the way down into the southeast and mid-Atlantic, and 30s when you get up into Pennsylvania northward. The surface for tomorrow, Saturday. Our better chance for severe weather, New Mexico into Colorado, even parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. We'll show you that here in a second. Again, our upper level low kind of stalled out in the Four Corners area. So scattered snow showers all the way from, heavier snow from Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, into Utah and southwestern Colorado, with some snow in northern Arizona even, and also parts of New Mexico. Another system moving into the northwest, so maybe some snow for Washington, some rain for the coasts. Some rain moving into the plains now, scattered storms here, although regular rain, South Dakota, North Dakota, into Minnesota, and scattered showers for Florida. This is tomorrow. Severe tomorrow, yep. Eastern New Mexico kind of expanding its reach, now getting into far west Texas, places like Wink near Balmorhea, but also, further south in New Mexico, Carlsbad, Jal, Lovington, Tatum. I used to live here, Artesia, Roswell, up into Fort Sumner, Clovis, Portales. Let's just name all the cities in New Mexico, up into Clayton. So that's where your severe weather is possible. And even crossing into the Texas side of the border, places like, I don't know, is Bledsoe, that's New Mexico. Morton, maybe, could see some severe weather. And your tornado threat is here again. It's smaller, but it's still at 2%. This does include Roswell and Lovington and Tatum and Clovis, Portales, and up towards Tucumcari. So slight chance of tornadoes tomorrow in eastern New Mexico. Your anomalous temperatures still staying on the cool side for Arizona, kind of the bullseye for the coolest air here. 30 degrees below average for parts of the state around, say, Payson. But the whole Four Corners cooler than average, warmer than average for the upper Midwest, plains, into the Great Lakes, still slightly cooler than average for the Southeast, where again, temperatures will be in the 70s for tomorrow afternoon. A few more 80s for Texas, 70s through the plains into the Midwest, some 60s there along the Canadian border though, and 60s for the Northeast. Around our low, this is the coolest area. So we have 40s and 50s around the Four Corners, and probably cooler than that with our snow with elevation. Warming up a little bit though for California, 70s and 80s here, all the way down into the desert southwest. Here's your precipitation for the next 48 hours. So this is ending 8 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday, from now until Sunday morning. And so we see a bullseye here, almost 4 inches of rain possible for parts of northeastern New Mexico, again near Clayton. And then you get even down towards, Tatum, towards Roswell. Fort Sumner would be included in this, again, approaching 3 to 4 inches of rain for some, along with our severe weather threat. You get into West Texas and that drops off pretty quickly, but even still maybe a half inch from Amarillo to Lubbock. You get into the mountains and the Four Corners, and this, of course, a lot of it will fall as snow depending on elevation. And so that's where we get our southwestern mountains of Colorado up to 3 feet of snow. And then same for, the Pacific Northwest. We've got rain or snow depending on elevation. So the Cascades of Washington could get quite a bit of snow from this system. Of course, that'll fall as rain as you get down the hill. Surface on Sunday. Excuse me. Our upper level low still hanging out in the Four Corners before it gets kicked into the plains. We do have a chance of thunderstorms a little further east into the plains, but still heavy snow possible, mountains of southwestern Colorado on Sunday. And then up in Washington, looks like some snow, maybe even, not quite Spokane, but getting into the panhandle of Idaho and even parts of Montana. Rain on the Pacific Northwest coast. Severe on Sunday? Well, no severe, but general thunderstorms now for West Texas and all of New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, getting into western Iowa just a little bit, South Dakota, Wyoming. Could see some just your regular thunderstorms on Sunday. Sunday's anomalous temperatures, we're going to still be below average for the Four Corners, much above average for the northern plains into the upper Midwest, and above average for the Great Lakes as well, even into the Northeast, slightly above average. Pretty close to average for the Southeast. And those high temperatures look like this. Still 70s in the Southeast, although we see an 80 or two in here, especially down in Florida. Mid-70s, mid-Atlantic, and 70s hang in there for Virginia. You have to get into northern Pennsylvania, into New York State before you start seeing 60s for highs. 70s back towards the Ohio Valley, into the Midwest. We see some 80s now in Iowa on Sunday. I hate that. It won't be 80 here, but Des Moines in the low 80s will probably be close to 80 though, upper 70s likely. And then when you get into the north, North Dakota, hanging on to some 70s here. So a warm up for a lot of the country, moderating temperatures with our low in the Four Corners, and getting a little bit warmer for the West Coast as well. All right, let's take a look at the GFS and see if we can get this thing going. Some interesting things to look at here. Let's start with today, and we'll go through time. You can see our showers, thunderstorms, snow for the Four Corners. I zoomed through today. This gets us through till tonight, so let me back up just a little bit. So today you just see that low hanging out in the Four Corners with some snow, Utah, Colorado, parts of Arizona into New Mexico, and around that showers and even some thunderstorms. As you see a cold front, moving through Arizona and into New Mexico as we get in overnight tonight. And even a little bit of snow behind that. We see our heavy snow in southwestern Colorado. Also up here in the northwest, some pretty heavy rain for the coast of Washington, and that'll be heavy snow with elevation in the Cascades. Briefly saw a few showers here, Nebraska into South Dakota. This is towards midnight tonight. And as we get into tomorrow, here's our chance of thunderstorms, eastern Mexico, lingering snow back in Colorado and Utah, some pretty heavy rain for northwestern Washington. As we get further into Saturday, you can see our breakout of severe thunderstorms, some isolated tornadoes possible with these. As we get into Saturday night, this gets us to midnight Saturday into Sunday. We still see some snow back here in the mountains of southwestern Colorado, some severe weather northeastern New Mexico. Our cool high pressure across, say, the southeast and into the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. The temperatures are moderating, but this is our cool high. And then, again, we get into Sunday. This low is still kind of stuck here. It will get kicked into the plains, but still snowing in Colorado. It doesn't look super heavy, but still snowing in the mountains. Rain at the lower elevations. And then finally, as we get into Sunday night, into Monday, those showers move into the plains. So this is early Monday morning. Some rain from eastern New Mexico into West Texas, into Kansas and Nebraska. A little bit of snow up here in Colorado. Excuse me. And then as we get into Monday, and we see more rain moving into Kansas, Nebraska, some light rain here where I live in western Iowa by Monday evening, and moving into Tuesday, some light showers moving through Iowa into Illinois. Not a whole lot going on. Now we get into midweek. So this is late Tuesday night into Monday morning. We see a cold front dropping into the northern plains. Along that front, we see some showers. Behind that front, some pretty chilly air for North Dakota into Minnesota, into Wisconsin. That front moves eastward and southward, so cooling us off here in Iowa will take it. And storms along that front moving into Michigan as we get into Wednesday. And those go across the eastern Great Lakes as a low forms here in Canada. But it's rain, not snow, rain for New York State as we get into Wednesday night and then into Thursday. Those showers move across New England into Maine, and that cooler air follows it. So just a brief cool off for the northern plains, upper Midwest, and Great Lakes, and then that cooler air moves east and we start to warm back up in the center part of the country. We just can't shake these warmer temperatures. All right, we get into Friday. We see another system moving into the Pacific Northwest. Looks like some decent rains, especially along the coast, and some snow, but looks like high elevation snow here. And then another system behind that for next weekend. And we'll watch that spread some rain and snow in the interior of the Northwest. And then I want to zoom forward because we see this low here. This is the 28th. Remember yesterday, the GFS, this is the GFS model, showed a pretty strong cold front dropping right into the center of the country on the 29th. Well, this has changed a little bit. It has the colder air moving further to the east and not as far south on the 29th. But then watch as we get into Halloween. we have a strong low forming here in the plains, moving out of the Rockies into the plains. This is the 30th. So heavy snows, again, if this comes true, remember, we had a change even from yesterday to today on this run. But this bears watching. If we get a strong low out here into the plains, we could be looking at severe weather ahead of it and snow behind it. And then we'll see where that goes. Right now, GFS has it going north through the Dakotas with snow in the western Dakotas, wind and rain east of that, spreading a cold front with some severe weather possible into the Midwest. So we'll see what happens with that. Certainly behind that, we have some cold air dropping in to start November. So again, we go through the runs every day so we can see the changes and kind of give you a heads up on what could happen in the extended forecast. Speaking of which, 6 to 10 day temperatures, it's just warm. This is the 23rd through the 27th, just warm for the whole country except for the Northwest. And precipitation-wise, dry except for the Northwest. I thought this would be fun. I have the anomalies temperatures for next week lined up. So we can do this. This is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So here's Monday, and it's very warm for the northern plains, upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes, but a little bit cool in the Northwest and barely, probably just call it about average for the Southeast. And then you can see on Tuesday, so Monday to Tuesday, not as hot for the plains, but pretty much the whole country either above average or much above average. Wednesday, there's that cool off for the Great Lakes, everyone else above average, especially Oklahoma into Texas, Arkansas, Missouri. Then Thursday, heat builds back into the northern plains, upper Midwest, with that cooler air, I should say, spilling out of the Great Lakes into the Northeast and even as far south as, say, Kentucky and Tennessee. And then we go into Friday, much above average temperatures, Nebraska, South Dakota, Montana, North Dakota, and Oklahoma, Texas too. The biggest cool off here would be Northern California and North Carolina. Then we get into Saturday, so a week from tomorrow, very warm, like almost hot, centered around Iowa. Craziness, 30 plus degrees above average, 35 degrees above average for, what is that, Cedar Rapids or getting close towards Davenport. Anyway, very warm. Nice cool off though for the Pacific Northwest. And then a week from Sunday, hot in the plains and Midwest and even the Great Lakes, and cool for the Northwest as that next system will start to spread in some cool air finally as we get towards the end of the month. And just for fun, this is your early Halloween forecast. So take this with a huge, ginormous grain of salt. But if you're taking your kids trick-or-treating or you have fall festivals, that sort of thing to get to, this is a very early look at Halloween. So below average, northern plains, Four Corners, Rockies into the Northwest, even California, close to average, slightly below. And then warm temperatures from North Texas through the South into the Ohio Valley, even the Great Lakes, about 10, 15 degrees above average as you get into the South too. And then kind of chilly up there in New England, especially Maine. So just a sneak peek at Halloween. All right, well, that's our grand tour of the weather this morning. And of course, our big story for this weekend is the low, kind of stuck in the Four Corners with severe weather, eastern New Mexico, snow, especially mountains of southwestern Colorado, but even into Utah, northern Arizona, parts of New Mexico. And again, that's the big story this weekend. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow to keep you updated. So I really appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. The Weather Mike.